بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today we'll be talking about classification of fruit crops, which is a continuation of the lecture from the first lecture on crop classification. So how fruits are classified? We already know how the fruit, is growing from flowers and the different types of ovaries. If they are coming from single ovary, we call them simple. If they are coming from more than one ovary, we call it compound. And there are two types of compound fruits. One is aggregate and one is multiple. This is a revision of what we learned last time. Today we'll be talking about the fruits and the fruit crops themselves and how we classify them. So let's get started by defining two major classification of crops. One is called deciduous, which is mainly those trees that shed their leaves during the winter time when they are dormant. So when they go through dormancy in the winter, or sometimes even in the summer in some crops like fig, we call them deciduous. That means they shed their leaves, so they are leafless. And the other one will always have leaves, and that's why they are called evergreen. Evergreen means they will always be green. So evergreen means they don't drop their leaves. If they are deciduous, they actually drop their leaves. And those trees that drop their leaves are also two groups. One is called small fruits, and this includes small plants, shrubs, vines like grapes, like strawberries, and many other ones. And also include tree fruits like pome fruit, apples, peaches, pecans, some other fruits. So this is the type of trees that drop their leaves. They are called deciduous, and the ones that stay green are called evergreen. And most of the evergreens are actually either tropical or they are subtropicals. That means they either can be tolerant to extreme temperature like cold temperature, or they are not actually tolerant. So tropical crops, tropical fruit trees like banana, they don't tolerate very cold temperature, whereas subtropicals they can. Subtropicals include citrus and date palm, and these are also evergreen. That means they don't shed their leaf in the winter or in the summer. Example of area where fruit crops are cultivated is Jabal Akhdar, and that's why in the winter they go dormant, as you can see here, and they lose their leaves, including the pomegranate and apples and pears and peaches and apricots and all of those. And in the summertime they go back and they grow again to become green. So this area is a temperate crop area, and some of these crops do shed their leaves in the winter. You can see here these walnuts are all green because this picture was taken in the summertime. The same location here, the trees, the walnuts lose their leaves because these crops are deciduous. That means they lose their leaves. Another picture from another side, the same mountain, Jabal Akhdar, Wadi Bani Habib, and you can see here all the trees are green. All the trees here lost their leaves in the winter time. So this is what deciduous fruit trees are. Of course, some of them will remain green. Those are evergreen. Tropical climates like in Salalah, for example, most of the crops don't lose their leaves during the winter time, including coconuts and also citrus, guava, papaya, and so many other fruit crops. These are tropical fruit trees that they don't lose their leaves, but also they cannot tolerate cold weather, freezing temperature. Okay, another classification of fruit crops is herbaceous perennials. That means they are perennials. That means they produce fruits year after year, but they are herbaceous. And these include plants that are monocots and they don't develop secondary xylem or wood. Example of fruit trees of herbaceous and perennials is pineapple, papaya, and banana. These are all herbaceous perennials. That means they are actually, the stem is usually soft. They don't have wood. But there is also other trees that have wood. They have secondary xylem, secondary growth, and these include citrus, nuts, other dicot trees. All of these are woody plants or woody trees. This is the banana, and you can see it is herbaceous. That means it doesn't have wood, and you can see the wood here on mango. You can see the wood in citrus, and these are woody trees, and these are herbaceous perennials. Okay, another classification type is, you know it from before, from last lecture, which is a simple fruit. That means a fruit that develops from a single ovary, and also the compound fruit, which develops from multiple ovaries, more than one ovary. This more than one ovary can be on the same flower, as I showed you last time on strawberry, or they can be in many flowers, like the case of pineapple, for example, and mulberry. In simple fruits, they are also further classified into fleshy fruits. That means the pericarp, and you already know the pericarp from last time, is made of exocarp, mesocarp, or endocarp. All of these three structures are fleshy. The pericarp is soft or fleshy and includes berries, pepo, Hesperidium fruits, Drupe fruits, Pome fruits. These are all fleshy fruits. Okay. And the dry fruits, all of these pericarp is completely dry at maturity. All of the three layers, the exocarp, the mesocarp, and the endocarp, and they are usually coming into dehiscent or indehiscent dry fruits. Indehiscent means they open after they become dry, or they stay closed. Indehiscent fruit, both of these are dry fruits. Fleshy fruits will always have a layer of fleshy part, including the outer part, which is the exocarp, or the mesocarp, or the endocarp, or the three of them together. So some classification for simple fruit include fleshy fruits like berry. Berry, almost all of these three layers are all the exocarp, the mesocarp, and the endocarp. All of them are fleshy. If you take grapes, for example, there is no hard part in grapes. All of them are easy to eat. The whole grape can be eaten because all three layers, the endocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp, all of them are fleshy. Banana is the same thing. Banana, pomegranate, all these layers are soft and fleshy. Hesperidium is a kind of berry fruit. Okay, Hesperidium is a berry fruit, but it has leathery rind, and this is only in citrus. So any citrus is Hesperidium. They are also berry, but they are different kind of berries. They are called Hesperidium, where there is a leathery skin on the outside. The exocarp and the mesocarp is the rind, and the endocarp is the edible sacs, juice sacs. You know the oranges, what the orange look like. Exocarp and mesocarp are distinct by their color. For example, the outside orange is orange, the skin. Inside of that is the mesocarp, which is white usually, and inside there is juice sacs, or أكياس العصير بالعربي. If you can see here, we have a fleshy pomegranate, and this is also a berry. Why a berry? Because all the layers are soft, including the outside exocarp, mesocarp, and this layer of endocarp that surrounds the arils or seeds of pomegranate. So pomegranate is a berry. If you dissect another berry, fleshy fruit, this is called Hesperidium, remember, because this is also a citrus. Citrus include oranges, mandarins, limes, lemons. All of these are citrus, and they are all berries with leathery skin, leathery rind, and that's why they are all called Hesperidium. And so the exocarp is the outside layer, usually colored like orange or yellow, and the mesocarp is inside of this white layer, is called the mesocarp. Endocarp is these sacs that carry the juice, and inside of them is the seed. So this is called Hesperidium, and it is actually a fleshy berry. Another kind of fleshy fruit is called drupe. Sometimes it's called stone fruit, And this is the reason for being called stone, is the endocarp is actually hard. So endocarp is the stone of the fruit. So the inside is very hard. If you think about peach, apricots, plums, mangoes, dates, even some of the dates are called drupe. But think about the mango. It's very simple to say mango. Mango is very easy to notice. You eat the skin, you can also eat the mesocarp, but when you try to eat the endocarp, it's very hard. And so this is called stone fruit. The same thing for apricot, the same thing for plums and peach as well. Okay, so you can see the picture here. This is the exocarp on the outside. Okay, soft. The mesocarp is the edible part, is also soft, but you look at the hard coat endocarp that surrounds the seed. The seed is of course inside of the endocarp, so the endocarp is the bit, which makes it very hard. So endocarp is actually the hard stone, and that's why we call this drupe fruit or stone fruit. So drupe is actually a fleshy fruit also, but it has a stony endocarp. Another type of fleshy fruit is called pome fruit, and these are accessory fruits with thick hypanthium. This is just like any other soft fleshy fruit, except that outside of the ovary there's a whole layer that we actually consume. We call it hypanthium, and this is very common in apple, pear, and quince. And the exocarp, of course, and the mesocarp is very soft and edible. Endocarp is not. It's the one that surrounds the seeds. So if you look at this pome fruit, apple, this is the hypanthium. So hypanthium is actually outside of the ovary. This is the actual ovary, and these are the seeds inside. So this is the endocarp. This is still the exocarp, and the meso is here. Outside here is the hypanthium. Hypanthium is here. This develops from the flower, not from the fruit, not from the ovary. So pome fruit is the ovary surrounded by what? By fleshy hypanthium. This is the, if you think about the ovary is here. This is where the ovary is, and that's why we call this hypanthium. This is an apple. Okay, so that's it for fleshy fruit. How about dry fruit? Dry fruit, remember, it's all dry at maturity. It cannot have one layer that is not dry. All the three layers have to be dry. If the inside layer endocarp is only dry, this is called stone fruit, drupe. It's not called dry fruit. So dry fruit has all the pericarp, exocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. All of it is dry. So it's either indehiscent or dehiscent. Most of the crops we have is actually indehiscent. That means they don't open and they don't release their seed. So basically these trees usually have one seed, like nuts, like hazelnut and chestnut. These are the two most important dry fruit crops, hazelnut and chestnut. Walnut and pecan is actually drupe. Brazil nut is a seed, so it's not even belong to this. It is soft, fleshy fruit. Okay, so now let's look at the hazelnuts. A is hazelnut, and you know the hazelnut. So this is a true fruit, and all the three layers is dry or are dry. Chestnut, castana. Also, chestnut is also considered a true nut or true fruit nut or nut fruit. That's also the same thing. So this is the only two that are dry fruits. The rest are not dry fruits, and actually most of these don't belong to fruit crops, like for example peanuts. Peanuts are not fruit trees or fruit crops. There are many fruits that are considered drupes, including walnuts, pecans, macadamia nuts, pistachio. All of these are considered nuts. They have soft exocarp, mesocarp, but the endocarp is very hard. This is actually not the case of date palm, even though in some references they call them drupes. They are actually fleshy and not, they are berry. These are berry and not drupe. Okay, so usually the drupe fruit will have hard, stony, seed-bearing endocarp, which is not the case for date palm. How about coconut? Coconut is actually a drupe also, because the outside skin is soft, the mesocarp is soft, only the endocarp is hard. So that's why it is considered a drupe as well. So that's what it is. So the embryo is embedded in the fruit, and the soft, you know, the drink, the coconut milk is actually endosperm, liquid endosperm. As you know, most of the seeds will have endosperms, except for the coconut, it is liquid. It's actually both liquid and also there's a dry white endosperm as well. So the coconut meat is also endosperm, and the milk that you drink, muesli, is also liquid endosperm. So this is the coconut. This is the hard endocarp, but the soft here and here also you can see this is a soft exocarp, soft mesocarp, only hard endocarp is hard, but mesocarp, exocarp, both are soft. And this white thing is the endosperm, the milk is also endosperm. So basically coconut is a drupe fruit. So to simplify the whole story, if you have one flower and one ovary, then you have a simple fruit. Now, if you have more than one ovary, it's called compound fruit. So this is compound fruit because it's more than one ovary. If these more than one ovary come from one flower, then it is called aggregate. If it is more than one flower, then we call it multiple. Of course, I showed you this before, and it is look like pineapple. So this is more than one flower and more than one ovary. But here you can see these structures is just one flower, but the ovary are many and include like strawberry. These are examples of ananas, strawberries, as well as pineapples. All of these are compound fruits, either aggregate. If they have one flower, it is called aggregate, like this one here, or if they have multiple, like the pineapple, it's called multiple fruit. Here is the aggregate again. So aggregate always means more than one ovary in one flower. So multiple ovaries from single flower. Single flower is very important to know. Okay. So small one-seeded drupes and drupelets are all called aggregates. Remember, aggregates is multiple or compound fruit coming from one flower. What happens if you have more than one flower and more than one ovary? It's called multiple, but this one is called aggregate, like strawberry. And these dots are actually called achenes. So they are technically, these are the actual ovaries and the fruits. But you can see here, this is the petals, and you can see the sepals here. More than one sepal is calyx, and these are all single flowers. But the ovaries are many, and that's why we call this aggregate. Another form of aggregate is the annona, also a single flower, but more than one ovary, like this one here. So the fruit is more than one ovary. That's why it is called aggregate fruit. This particular fruit is called also syncarps, but they are aggregate. Okay. Custard apple, cherimoya, all annonas, all are annonas. And they are all aggregates. So our soap is also the same thing. You can see this is the petal, and this is the sepals, and this is the multiple ovaries that give you sour soap. And this is why it is called aggregate, because it's one flower but multiple ovaries. Okay, and now we have compound fruit or multiple fruit, meaning what? When you say multiple, that means many ovaries coming from many flowers. When you say aggregate, many ovaries coming from one flower. That's the difference. And so together they form an inflorescence, and that inflorescence have a central stem axis. And that's why when you look at it, it looks like this. So this is the axis of the stem, and this is more than one flower. And so because they are more than one flower, this is mulberry for sad. And so this is actually a multiple fruits. Each one single fruit of this is actually a druplet. That means the endocarp of this small little fruit here is actually hard, but you don't feel it because it is very small. Pineapple is the famous multiple fruit, and this is the axis of the fruit, and these are individual flowers making multiple fruits. So for multiple flowers, multiple ovaries, multiple fruits, all stacked in one axis. Here's another picture of the same thing. This is the flowers of the pineapple. Each of them has its own ovary, so multiple ovaries, multiple flowers will give us multiple fruit. Another example of multiple fruit is monstera, and this is usually used as ornamental plant, but you can see this has more than one ovary and more than one flower, making it a multiple fruit. Famous example of multiple fruit is the fig. Where is the flower of the fig? It's actually inside of the fruit, and each of this gets pollinated because this is more than one flower, and also more than one ovary, and therefore it is making a single fruit with multiple ovaries, and we call these multiple fruits. The fig or the ficus is actually Syconium. The name of this kind of fruit is Syconium. It is multiple fruit still, classified as multiple, but the actual name is Syconium. It is a fleshy, flask-shaped structure, lined on the inside with numerous female flowers, each forming a small one-seeded droplet. So even this, you can feel the taste of the fig. It has a little bit of stone. So actually it is just like others, is also a droplet, but it is a multiple fruit. Of course, this is not the end of it. There are many other fruit classification, fruit types. You can see them here: aggregate, accessory, berry, Hesperidium, pepo, drupe, and pome. This is what we know in fruits, and this is how they developed. Okay, so the fruit developed from single flower, we call them simple. If they develop from multiple ovaries, we call them multiple fruit or aggregate. If it's single flower and multiple ovary, then we call them aggregate. If it is multiple ovaries coming from multiple flowers, we call them multiple, but all of them are compound. Simple fruits can be berries, where all the three layers are soft, Hesperidium, like citrus. They can be pepo, like watermelon. They can be drupe, like peach and mango, where the endocarp is stony. They can also be pome, like apple, pear, and quince. You don't need to remember all of these, but this is for your information. Okay, so I think this is the last slide here. And so this was fruit classification. Now you need to remember only one thing. Fruit classification depends on the flower, where the fruit coming from. If it came from a single ovary, a single flower, then we call it simple fruit. And this simple fruit is also classified into berry, Hesperidium, and stone fruit. Okay. Also, pome is a simple fruit because all of these is actually coming from single flower and single ovary. What happens if they came from multiple ovaries? Then we call them compound. Now the compound fruit are two types. One is called aggregate and one is called multiple. If the multi-ovary fruit coming from single flower, we call them aggregates, like strawberries, like many others, like ananas. Okay, if they are coming from multiple ovaries and multiple flowers, we call them multiple fruits, of course. And these examples are mulberries and also pineapples, as well as fig. All of these are called multiple fruits. So this is basically the general classification of fruits. Remember also the dry fruit is the fruit that has 3 layers completely dry, the exocarp, the mesocarp, and the endocarp. And the only 2 common fruits that are totally dry are hazelnut and chestnut. So chestnut and hazelnut are the only 2 crops that is completely dry. So this is a summary of the fruit classification. I hope you find it interesting and also very clear. Inshallah, we'll do classification lab, and you can be dissecting the fruits and be able to tell if the fruit is simple or they are multiple, and if they are simple, what kind of fruit is that? If they are multiple, are they aggregate or multiple? Okay, I wish you all the best. I hope this was very clear. If you have any question, please let me know. Thank you and goodbye.